Polish the Mirror podcast, episode number 20. I'm your host, Amy Thurman. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. It is such a pleasure for me to be able to do this, to come on here and host this podcast. And if you haven't caught any of the episodes before, welcome. The the platform is a reflection of my life. I have lived the past 10 years with a broken neck and have been able to find hope in the midst of that. And I have figured out that there are lots of people in the world who have stories not like mine, but very similar, who have gone through adversity and been able to find hope in the midst of it. And so I couldn't find a platform where people could share their stories. So I created one. So that's what this is about. This podcast, Polish the Mirror podcast, is a platform for people to share their stories of hope gained in the midst of adversity, because there are so many people going through so many things. We need more hope in the world, right? We need to share that. And so that's my mission, is to share hope and to be able to help as many people as possible. So if you want to find the others, just go to hashtag Polish the Mirror podcast. It's streaming live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, all the things. You can find it on all the places. And then I download the audio to the podcasting platforms, so you can find it on there as well. So let's get into this today. I'm excited to introduce you to my friend. This is Jan. Jan, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you so much for having me. I'm so impressed with what you're doing.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you so much. It's, Jan told me beforehand that she's watched a couple of these episodes of this podcast, and just it touches my heart to know that people are actually watching them. It's one thing for me to do it because it just means a lot to me to provide this platform, but to know that people are actually watching it and getting something out of it just means the world to me. So thank you, Jan. Okay, so why don't we go ahead? I'm just going to turn the stage over to you, Jan, and let you share whatever it is you want to share about your story of hope gained in the midst of adversity, and we'll go from there.
Sounds good, Amy. Well, flashback to 2015, and I was a farmer, vegetable farmer, getting things ready for the markets. We did 6 markets a week, and we had vegetables, but of course I did other things like baking. I would bake up to 90 loaves of bread or rolls, or I did sweet rolls for people. Oh my God, they always went so fast. I do cookies and jellies and jams, and it was amazing. And I was getting 3 hours of sleep a night trying to do it all. It's my fault. So one morning in July, I walked into the apartment to get some fruit to make coffee cakes. And as I walked in the door, my leg didn't hold me up. And I thought, oh. And I went down on the floor and I realized my right arm wasn't working either. I knew right away I was having a stroke. So I called my then partner. I called my son. And by the time I called 911, I could just mutter and mumble and nothing came out right. But because I was on my cell phone, they found me and they got to me very quickly. Good. Took me to the local hospital. I don't remember any of this. Darn it, because they actually flew me in a helicopter over to Burlington, and I have always wanted to ride in a helicopter, and I don't remember it. Figures.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
My daughter flew in from Colorado to be with me. I was apparently not talking. I couldn't talk, but I would squeeze the hands and I would blink. I don't remember any of that. I first came back to realization that I was alive about 3 days later. But it wasn't quite the alive that I expected.
Yeah.
And the doctors told me I'd had a hemorrhagic stroke, which is a brain bleed. And it had wiped out all my prime real estate. That is exactly what the doctor said. It was right in the center of my brain, and it wiped out everything. So the diagnosis for me wasn't very good. But I have ADHD, and I'm stubborn. And in my head, I said, oh, no, this isn't for me. You just watch me.
Yes. Yes.
I couldn't. It was amazing. I had friends come from all over, from Vermont, from New York, all the way the other side of New York to visit me. And one, she brought me books because she knew how much I loved to read. And I looked at the books and I couldn't read. So she ended up bringing me picture books so I
Mm-hmm.
could look at the pictures at least. But when my partner at that time brought me my phone, I could type. I couldn't read what I was typing, but I knew what I was typing. I can't explain it. Nobody else can
Wow.
either. A lot of times it was kind of mixed up because my cognitive abilities were way off. If they showed me pictures, say, of a tree, I'd say banana. I know it's the tree in my head. I said tree, but it didn't come out that way. But I
Yeah.
was able to type on my phone and give it to the person who was in the room with me so I could communicate. And they figured out what I was saying. Sometimes it was hard, but it was the first way that I could actually really communicate with someone because my speech, they said that had been wiped out, not to expect to ever get it back.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And I fell off the toilet twice in rehab because no, I wanted to go by myself and didn't work. I
Yes.
fell out of
Sounds
bed.
like me. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just determined. And there was a woman
Yes.
in there that I met. She was amazing. She had been a prisoner CO in one of the prisons in Dannemora, or the prison, and she had been hit by a car, sideswiped, and her neck was broken. And they were working on trying to get some kind of movement out of her arms, which was starting. But we would get together on our wheelchairs and we would talk, kind of. Her talking was about like mine, about 3 words a minute. But we had this camaraderie, and it was nice to be able to go and visit with her. And
Yeah.
looking at what she was going through, I said, well, she doesn't have anything neck down. At least I have my left side.
Yeah.
So I started walking with a Hemi walker, not very well and not very far. They taught me how to maneuver around in my wheelchair and put a pot of water on the stove to boil noodles. They taught me about cooking. The shower was very difficult, and it still is
Mm.
because you understand this. Everything you do, you have to think about how you're moving, how your muscles are moving, how something that doesn't work right is going to get from here to there.
Right.
And showers were very difficult, especially trying to get the soap out of my hair, and I couldn't brush my hair. I had very, very long hair. It was almost all the way down my back. And I ended up talking one of the nurses into cutting it off for me because I couldn't handle it. And she
Mm.
did. It was nice of her. I was there
Yeah.
for 6 weeks. They got me talking a little bit better. I got up to about 6, 7 words a minute, but I still had problems with my cognitive abilities. Um, like I said, I couldn't read, couldn't write. I couldn't even crochet anymore, and I loved crochet.
Mm.
And I was thinking, oh boy, I'm not going to be able to paint anymore because I'm right-handed. I got to learn how to write all over again left-handed. My dad at that point, if he was still alive, would have said, well, I did it, so you can do it, because he was ambidextrous.
Oh wow.
And I stayed home for about 3 months. They had PT come into my home, and I had a gal come in for speech. And she helped me with my cognition more than my speech because they figured it wasn't going to happen. Just what I had was going to be it. But I continued pushing my talking. I talked to my dog. Poor Tippy.
Mm.
She heard everything. Even when I was mad at something and I just growl and groan and, hit things and have my fists going like this because I was mad. And she was
Yeah.
such a good girl through it all.
Oh.
And within a year, I went back to work. I still couldn't speak very well. I couldn't read. I couldn't write. And the kids, I had been at this school for many years, the kids took over. They helped me. It was amazing. Learned to talk better. They would
Mm-hmm.
write on the board and make me read what they were writing. And when they were in class, of all things, they made sure that they read what they were supposed to read out loud so I could follow along. And they would ask me, what's the next word, to make sure I was following along. And they helped me with walking. And they became not only my cheering squad, but they became my reason to push myself
Yes.
and to keep going. And without them, I don't know where I would have been, because
I love that
they
so
opened
much.
they opened up the world for me. And the ones that helped the most, believe it or not, were the ones that were the most troubled.
Yes.
And they would
Yeah.
say, you're doing this. Why are you doing this? You should be home sitting. And I would say, I would miss you. I enjoy being
Oh,
with you. So they would help me, and they were amazing. And at one point, I got put into the special ed class because they didn't have a teacher. So for 4 months, I worked with these high school boys, and they immediately took to me because I too was handicapped, or not handicapped,
nice.
disabled. I was
Yes.
disabled. And they said, look at what you're doing. Well, I can do it too. And we worked with checkbooks. We worked with reading because their reading wasn't good. We used comic books. They liked
Oh,
that.
yeah.
And we did math, and it was neat. We didn't really do social studies because there wasn't a need. We were teaching, or I was teaching, life skills to these guys. And I had the best time, and it was amazing. So,
It's so interesting to me. I love that because we often see students as needing to be taught. Like we're adults, we teach them and they learn, but they have so much to teach us. Like I firmly believe this. Like if we allowed kids to be teachers, we could learn so many things from them. I could talk about that for a long time, but yes, I love that they were there for you and helped you and were your teachers essentially. That's so beautiful.
yeah. The teachers actually would come up to me and say, I'm having a bad day, but then I stopped and I thought about what you go through every day, and my day didn't seem so bad.
I hear that
My
all the time. Yes.
my recovery went through all the depression, bad depression, because
Mhm.
the area in my brain that lets off serotonin and the other one that help you feel good
Dopamine?
about you, yeah, dopamine,
Mhm.
was wiped out, and it's still gone. But I didn't tell anyone until I finally admitted it to my doctor, and he was wonderful. He immediately found something that worked wonderfully. So I got over that, and then the pain started in about 3 years into it, and it's a pain that is on a scale of 7 to 9 some days, and
Mm.
maybe 5 or 6 on good days. And it got to the point where I was crying because it was so painful. And it is a pain
Yeah.
that it made me wonder about babies. When they first come into this world, they've never been touched. And to touch me felt like, it still does, not pins and needles, nails. And hot water
Wow.
would burn, cold water would burn. And
Hmm.
the nerves were all mixed up because the connections in my brain weren't there anymore. So they were
Yeah.
starting to rewire. And oh my gosh, some days I would get something back, like moving my arm or my speech. I'd be able to say a word like Canada. I could not say Canada for the longest time. But then sometimes it would make another connection that was really bad, and I couldn't walk, or I would lose my speech. And within a day, it would reroute itself and try something new.
The
Every
brain is an
nine
amazing organ. It fascinates me. It
every
really
90
does.
days, it goes through and does a system check, so to speak.
Right.
and sees what connections are being used and what aren't. If it's being used, it fortifies that connection. If it's not being used, it doesn't pay attention and kind of puts that to the side. So this is something that is called neuroplasticity, and it
Yes.
happens your whole life up until you die. So the doctors said after 6 months to a year, you aren't going to get anything back. But neuroplasticity says, guess what? You can. You just have to have the
Exactly.
repetition and all that. So
Yes.
I went from not reading, not writing, not speaking to during COVID, I got let go because I didn't have a job. The kids weren't at school. I went back to college and I got my master's degree summa cum laude. I only got one B plus in I forget what it was, but it was something really hard and the teacher was tough. And I don't
Yeah.
mind. I enjoyed it. And
That's
I got
amazing.
out of there with my master's. I found a beautiful e-zine that was international, the B-zine, and I became one of their assistant editors and helped with the
How
production. It
cool.
was just a volunteer, but still, it was something to get me out there and to put on my resume.
Yeah.
And then during college, I started to write. I used to write poems all the time, but I started to write a story because I wanted to give back to the children's genre because the
Oh,
children's book is how I really began to read. I would get the picture books with words and the association so I could get it. And then I started with the board books and then went to little golden books. And after
right.
3 years, I worked up to Christopher Paolini's Aragon. Well,
Oh, yes.
third book, Brissinger, yeah.
Yeah.
So I decided to write. And I wrote a book with my dog, who is sleeping somewhere around here, as the star. It's called Tippy's New Friend. And it's about Tippy meeting a dragon, a lonely white
Oh,
dragon. And Tippy and her owner, Lana, go on an adventure and they fly all over the place, including over Nova Scotia, Greenland, Iceland, over to Norway and back. And the second book is being worked on right now. We're going through the drawings. It's going to be Tippy Goes to California.
ah,
And they're books that are kind of neat because they're with a dragon and everybody loves dragons these days. And I'm having them, Tippy, Lana, and Saren, the dragon, go to places that a lot of people might not go to see. I have them going to the glass beach, and I explain about how it became, how long people have been dumping glass over into the ocean to make this amazing beach. Then we go, of course, to the National Sequoia Forest and see a
oh, yes.
trees.
Yes.
And then we go to a ski slope. And come to find out, Sarah loves to belly slide down mountains. So she takes a couple people on this belly ride trip and they have fun. I mean, it's fun stuff. And then we fly over the Golden Gate Bridge. And the next day, my friend Chris, who is a person who lives in LA, he's the one taking us around as our tour guide. He takes me to the National Museum and we learn about different things about California and then we fly back. But in the books, there is a map so that kids can see where they've been and trace it. I mean, this is the first one. I don't know how well you can see
Oh,
it.
wow. I can see it.
The second
That's
one is
awesome.
the United States, and we talk about all the states we're flying over on the way there. And we're going to be going to all the different states. I'm lining up actual children to be my guide when I go to that state, and they're going to take me around. We have made a beautiful seat with a seat belt for Saren for extra people, and it's so much fun to be able to write this and do things that kids might get a chance to enjoy and think more of the world in this small town that I'm in. Kids don't often move or go out of this
Yes.
area.
Yes.
So by showing them different places, maybe they'll get out, and maybe they'll
Right.
think about going to college and or becoming a writer. Anybody can do it.
Yeah.
And these kids, oh
Right.
my God, the stories they tell.
I
Now
love that you
somebody
have taken your experience and you're giving back to the kids because that's what helped you. That's how you got to where you are. But you're also putting in a geographical component, so there's a learning component to it, but there's also like enjoyable and it's a reflection of you. I'm curious, are those places that you have been or are those places you want to go? Where did those places come from in the
there
first
are
book?
places I want to go, but it also
Yeah.
seemed like a reasonable trip for a dragon for the whole day. And
Yeah.
one of the first things I taught myself to do, having ADHD and not wanting to sit all day, I learned to crochet again. I loved
Ah,
crocheting.
one-handed.
One-handed, yep,
One-handed?
with my left
Oh my
hand. And
word.
I now do dragons. And this is a dragon puppet that the kids can wear when I'm at the school reading the book. And the kid can go around and it talks. And they can pretend they're talking and telling the story.
Oh,
So
that's so
it's
fun. So it's interactive. You make it interactive for them too.
yes.
Oh my
Well, if you
goodness.
don't, they can get bored. I
Yeah.
mean, if
Oh,
you have
yes.
ADHD trying to sit, it might be an interesting story and you might like it, but trying to sit still. When I was teaching agriculture back in the early 2000s, I had kids that would come to my classroom just to keep from getting into trouble because
Yes.
I had rabbits and I had chickens, and they could take them out and they could hold them and they could pet them and they could actually sit still and listen to what I was teaching. And they learned, even though they weren't in the class, they learned so much. We did welding, we did plant growing, and it was amazing the things that these kids enjoyed doing, even though they weren't in the class. It was just their free period. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I had silky chickens. They are beautiful. They're a
Oh,
little
they
tiny.
are.
Yeah, all fuzzy. But
Yes.
there was also something else that I missed doing from before. I painted landscapes, beautiful landscapes. They were done in who is the painter with the big afro? He's dead now, but he Bob
Yeah.
Ross.
It's oh
Bob
yeah,
Ross.
yeah.
And I had learned how to paint in his style, and it was so much fun. And I gave my paintings to my friends and family. And not doing that, I wanted to start again, but I was afraid to because left-handed, my handwriting is slanted and it's messy. And I thought, how am I going to control my hand enough to do something like that? So I started sketching, and that went okay actually. So a friend of mine who runs our poetry group, it's a stroke poetry group, invited me to a session where they were teaching painting. And I thought, okay, it's acrylic paints, I'll try. So
Yeah.
I ended up with this painting.
Oh my word. With your left
The
hand.
with my left hand, and it's got sheep in it. Those are the three white dots. I used to be a sheep farmer many years ago, and I love
Oh,
sheep. So then I said, okay, wonder if I can draw a sheep or paint a sheep.
oh my goodness. For
So I
those of you
painted
that are
that.
listening and you're not seeing this, these she has these paintings that she has created with her left hand that are amazing. Oh my goodness, I'm just so impressed. I can't even write with my left hand. I can't imagine trying to paint. Ah,
It's interesting. Sometimes my hand hits it and it smudges, so I have to paint something over that. And but
yeah,
it's freeing to know that I can do this, and that even though I was told not to expect anything because my prime real estate was gone, I took
right.
what was left, the desert and swamp, right? That's about what you have, nice land and then desert, and I started mixing them, and I got fertile ground again. So
Wow.
it's been quite a journey. And oh, with the pain, I forgot to tell you, I became addicted to painkillers. I was
Oh,
taking 6 to 8 Aleve a day and probably 10 or 12 extra strength 8-hour Tylenol.
yeah.
And I finally told my doctor, I'm going to do it myself kind of thing.
Hmm.
But I
I
told
did
him,
too.
and he found me a great medication that actually is for people who have seizures. But with
Hmm.
stroke patients, it actually controls some of the pain. So now I
Wow.
am at about a 3 or 4, which I can handle, and life is good. I've been gardening, and
Wow.
yes, I have my cane, but I take a pitchfork and I dig out roots and grass, and then I either put in my bulbs or my corms, and my garden is coming along beautifully. It's got 3 different beds now.
Ah, I love that so much. I talk a lot about we always have a choice, that so many times in life we feel like we have no choice, that we're just desperate and there's no other way. But there's always a choice. We always have a choice. And I love that you chose to take something that other people said would never be, and you made it happen. You figured out a way to do it because, like me, the determined spirit is very strong and we don't give up easily. And if you say, this is not going to happen, then I'm going to say, I will show you how to make it. I will show you how I can make it happen. And so you did that. And I love that you made that choice. And I want our listeners to understand that if you are suffering right now, if you are going through something right now, there is no judgment here. We're not judging you. I just want you to become aware that you have a choice, that you can do something about it. It's not something that's happening to you. You can make a difference, and you can choose, make a different choice. And there are lots of resources available. There are plenty of people like Jan and myself who have done this, who can help you. And so just please understand that you always have a choice. And Jan, I would
Amy,
love for you to share what you're doing now, how you're helping people in addition to writing.
I recently became a certified coach for stroke and traumatic brain injury individuals, their caregivers, and their loved ones. I'm doing all 3 together because it needs to be a team effort in order to
Yes.
get through this. I struggled on my own through everything, and I found things I could do to help myself with my muscles. And I don't want to see anybody else have to deal with trying to do all this by themselves. It's
Yes.
when you're alone, you give up because there's no one or no reason to continue going. So I have come up with all sorts of ideas. I took voice lessons to learn how to better use your voice box, and I learned all about certain massages that help the voice box, and it helps you relax them and get it working again, because after a stroke, and I know you have the same thing, half of your body doesn't work. It doesn't mean just the arms and the legs or the side of the face. Everything inside too doesn't work right.
Yeah.
And half your voice box not being able to work, it nullifies the whole thing. And you can't
Yeah.
speak, or you have to work so hard to get the air out of your lungs to make the vocal cords move. And I have learned how to work with this, and it's not something that happens overnight. Never it is,
Right. Yes.
but it gets better. And that's what I teach. And I
Yeah.
also teach about the muscles, and I teach about addiction and painkillers and how to deal with them. And depression is something I work with as well, because it is something that hits so hard. As you know, your life was an amazing thing before, and then this happened, and that part of you is dead. You died
Right.
that day, but the
Yes.
part of you that's still here, you learn how to work with again, and you learn how to
Exactly.
maneuver. And it's depressing because something that is so easy to normal people, like bending over and getting a pencil, takes you so long to do because you're thinking, what muscles do I need to do? I have to balance. How do I get this? And it is depressing, and it is frustrating. That was my favorite word for the first 5 years. I was frustrated because I couldn't do things. So I'm
Yeah,
there
you
if you
such
want to be coached or be helped. I don't actually tell you what to do. I suggest, and I also have you come up with your own ideas by helping you to think positively. Because that's what a coach does. A coach doesn't tell you what to do. They
right.
suggest, they have conversations with you that make you realize you can do this and you are stronger than you think. And
Yeah,
this is for
and
a reason.
yeah, exactly. You can take it and turn it into something to be used for good. Absolutely. And just the resources I feel like that you have come across and found throughout your journey, I think would be so valuable because when you're going through things, I know through my journey, when I was searching and searching for things. If there was someone who had already been through it, who knew the direction to point me in, it would have been so helpful. I would have gone along my path a lot faster, although it wasn't meant to be that way. But I'm just saying, for those of you listening or watching, if that's something that you're dealing with and need resources, I know that Jan can help you with that. And so I love being able to share that and to highlight people. Your website is www.thundercrestbooks.com. I will be sure and put that. I have put that in the description of the videos. I will put it in the description of the show notes so that you can just click on that. And then you have a freebie to offer them.
I do. It's poetry that I wrote after the stroke, dealing with just the stroke. And it covers all those different things that you have to deal with. And there is one poem in there. I hope it comes out correctly when you print it out or look at it, because it has the Eiffel Tower, it has scales, it has all sorts of different creations within it. And that's
Oh,
the kind of
wow.
poetry I write, is concrete poetry. So you get shapes about everything. And I can I would like to be able to read everybody one of the poems that I did that is not stroke related. I don't want to give
Sure.
away what I'm doing. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's called The Same Sun. The same sun that shines on you and warms your skin shines on me. We are all in this together. We all laugh, love, and hope. We all fear, hurt, and cry, each in our own time. So if you peel apart when things grow darkest, just remember you are not alone.
Mm.
The same moon which graces your night sky to light your way shines for me too.
Oh, it's so good. And it's so true. Like, especially when you're going through things like this, you do feel alone. Like, nobody knows what I'm going through. Nobody else has ever experienced this before. And it's not true. There are people out there who have. There are communities out there. Like, that's how I found a lot of the answers to what I went through, was by being in communities of people who were going through similar things. And it's so important. Oh, I love that so much. Jen, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being willing to be vulnerable with us and share your story. And thank you for taking it and using it in a way that's helping other people now, and especially children, and just being willing to do what you need to do to make it through that in a way that helps others. So I just appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much for having me here in order to tell my story. I appreciate it.
Of course, it's an honor for me to be able to offer this platform. It really is. And these stories, every week, these stories touch my heart so deeply. I feel honored to be able to offer it. So for those of you watching, for those of you listening, thank you so much for being here. If you have found this helpful, please share it with others. Please give us a 5-star review so that we can help reach more people, so these stories of hope can reach more people. The link to the freebie that Jan I am putting in the show notes and in the description, so that you can just click on it and download that as well. So thank you again for being here. I look forward to seeing you next week, and I hope you guys have a good week. Bye.